I am thrilled to be going live today for our Revolutionary Rich series inside of Here We Grow, where we drop in with extraordinary leaders that are making big waves and creating massive impact in a way that is creating and expanding wealth against what would typically be expected by normal standards of success. And so the guest that I have today is a phenomenal woman, dear sister of mine, who I have an immense amount of love and appreciation and respect for. Her name is Jilly Torrez. I'm going to bring her in, and then we're going to drop in really deep with you around all of these different ways that regenerative wealth gets to be revolutionary rich for you in your continual growth in your conscious leadership as we venture through decolonial wealth and as we dip into the waters, very on theme, dip into the waters of what it means to allow for wealth to be something that is stewarded in a way that is in service to collective liberation. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest for today. And here she is. Hi, gorgeous.
Hi.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm so good. It was such an amazing weekend. I was in Zion, and it has such a potent energy. Whenever I come back from Zion, I feel revitalized and refreshed. There's something about the spirits of that land and the wisdom that I received. So I just came from that world, and I'm just so excited for this because our bond is so special to me, and I know that what comes through in this conversation is going to be so powerful for the people that get to drop in and that get to receive from it. So thank you for being here. And I'd love to give you some space to share about yourself, just an introduction for people who are new to you. And you can share, anything that you would love for people to get to know about who you are, what your work is, and then we can just flow.
So funny. I went to a waterfall here in San Diego. It's like in the mountains. So I was in nature like all weekend, camping, waterfall, hiking, and everything's so green and like the flowers. I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, I feel like that is actually what I want to weave into this today is that reflection that nature gives us that has to do with regeneration, right? The ability to blossom. Um, Gosh, okay. So I feel like I am, well, I'll give you the left brain stuff first, right? I'm a 7-figure mentor, network marketing leader. I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years. I started at the bottom. Now we're here, right?
Hey.
Navigated my way, lower class. Definitely, I like to say some people start at 20. Some people start at 30. Some people start at 40 to 100. But I was like really 0 to 10, and I really struggled for a big majority of my 20s. And then I found entrepreneurship, and I started building in a way that was like new. I was like a newborn. I didn't know anything, and I didn't really have like indoctrination. I'm not good at school either. I dropped out of college and just like struggled my way through school. Definitely did not feel academic in the normal mainstream way. And then I found entrepreneurship, and I was like, this is freedom, and I was just so young, and I was just like, let's go. And then it was like indoctrination after indoctrination, one after the other, with all the masculine ways, self-development, this and that. And that did not work for me. And I found myself burnt out. I found myself struggling. I found myself like my self-worth was just all over the floor. And I remember just thinking like, isn't there another way? And of course, on my journey, I had to get rid of all my stuff, break up with my boyfriend, go traveling the world, backpacking the world. And then I got really connected to water, had to do that whole thing. And I started to really connect with water as the element of being reborn. I mean, like, I went so deep with water, and that's kind of the way that I grew up out in nature. So, like, I didn't know anything else, and my product is water. And so for me, it was like, all right, there's something here. And I got deeper and deeper into it. And then I came back to society, and I was like, I'm building business the way that creators moving through me, the way that God is asking me to. And I just built it off of community and village, and reconnecting with kind of moving from more new age to ancestral teachings, and waking up to my own lineage being mixed, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. And then it was like everything started coming together after that. And I was like, wow, this is the feminine, like, overflow, right? And I'm getting chills right now. I was like, I got to discover it. And so I'm kind of known in my industry as the unicorn, or as the, like, weird one. I don't know what Jilly's doing over there, because I tend to go deep. And but I'm really honored to be that representation here in this space. And I know that we're going to talk about a lot of deep things, but I think the fertile soil that we can really implement here is that, like, there really is another way that is hydrating, that is overflowing, that really can come from that regeneration space. And that's like where you and I connected, and I was like, oh, let's go.
Yes. This is such a rich way to open this conversation, because it brings me full circle. I actually hadn't thought about it for some time, to the moment when we actually first met, and how our whole connection was rooted in this rich, fertile soil being the place through which we get to rise and thrive in our own creations. And I remember at that time we were celebrating, well, you shared with me, and I was so excited for you. It was your first 7-figure year. And, a huge part of this series, as I'm having these really deep, nuanced conversations with change makers, with leaders, with creative visionaries who are at the place of 7 figures, multiple 7 figures and beyond, is the journeys that are so unique to the story that you've walked yourself through, that you've guided yourself through, to be able to reclaim for yourself a kind of wealth that was likely not possible for people that are doing it in the kind of way that you're doing it. And so I love that we bring in, like, fertile soil. Andrea, hello, my queen, our wild overflow queen. They bring in this conversation around, like, the fertile soil and the wild overflow, the water, like, all of these different elements that are part of the ancestral connection to land and to Mother Earth, that goes very against the way that, dominant society tells us how we grow or how we succeed, right? And so, like, within these systems that you already started to tap on, that I know we're gonna, like, just go fucking crazy. I know, like, the indoctrinations of, like, this is how it has to be, right? Like, the ways that we're taught to believe, and taught to that it's only, like, the one way of success that's either linear, or that comes from that patriarchal colonial model, like pushing too far, overexerting, depleting, exhausting yourself to maybe hit certain milestones, or to have certain metrics, or these things that are not as connected to soul, to heart, to this larger, greater mission that you came here to lead. And so from that space, I would love to get into just this opening of your journey to be in the place where you are now with money, as you've been dismantling the way that toxic capitalism exists, not only as a woman, but especially as a woman of color, because this is something that you and I really get to, continue to hold in our own leadership, of, like, what it means to revolutionize our relationship with money, and to create regenerative wealth, and the system that wants us to separate from our own inner richness, and, like, what that gets to mean also as we claim our ancestral wisdom and liberate our own lineage in the process of that, which I've had the deep honor of getting to learn and hear from you. And so, yeah, let's just dive into that, whatever comes for you, because I know that this is opening up so much already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love to start with the white elephant in the room, right? Is this like, okay, well, we're both white passing. We're both mixed, right? So there's always this thing we have to navigate of the privilege of that, the privilege that comes with that, right? And so when I was younger, so I'm part white. I don't like to use colors in that way. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later because of the commercial system and how we've been categorized through the census for the commercial system to even exist. Basically, there were no races before, and it was only ethnicity. And so for me, when I was really young, I'm the darker one of my siblings, right? I'm like, okay, why did I get all the in between looks? And I found myself mixed, being able to fit in with the white kids or the black kids or the brown kids, like being able to not really belong anywhere. And that actually affected my identity a lot.
Yeah. Right.
Getting made fun of, like, you're too dark for the light kids, you're too white for the dark kids. It's like you don't fit in anywhere. And I literally had obsessions with, why can't I just be one thing? Like, even when I was really, really young, I'm like, why can't I just be one of them? Why do I have to deal with all the projections from both sides, like being that bridge? And as I got older, I went through my phase of straightening my hair. You know, I went through the phase of feeling like I couldn't really own my indigenous identity because I didn't grow up on a reservation and I'm disconnected from my culture, than to trying to fit into, you know, the society, and living in Orange County during that time. So I actually, right out of high school, I moved out when I was 16. And right when I moved out, I went straight into working, and I work with kids. So, like, I ain't some salesperson, entrepreneur, whatever you want to say. Like, I just went straight into working with kids. And from there, I started to feel like I needed to be somebody else other than who I was. And so this looked like putting on makeup, acting a certain way, speaking a certain way, straightening my hair a certain way, right? So in the mix of all those identities, I started to reconnect to my culture. Okay. And so I'm indigenous. I have an indigenous lineage. I'm a descendant from the Chumash people of California. And I am in that process of re-indigenizing myself and going through that, but also really looking at my other ethnicities, right? My other lineages and how they all flow together. And there was a point when I moved out and I was in college and I found entrepreneurship, and I was like, who am I? Who am I to even start entrepreneurship? I don't have a home to go back to. So, you know, we talk about, yeah, just go ahead and start your business, but people don't talk about that they used mommy and daddy's credit cards to start their business. They don't talk about that they had a home to go back to when they started their business. I didn't have any of that. I couldn't go home. There was no home. And I had to figure my way out and navigate my way through this, like, can I even be an entrepreneur? Like, me, right? I don't look like everybody else in the middle to upper class that I was around. Yeah. And so I had to navigate my way through that. And as I stepped into it, I started my natural healing journey. And I was like, I can't be wearing all this makeup. I can't be doing this to my hair. I can't be putting all these toxins in my skin. And that's what connected me to regeneration. Started learning about the cells, started learning about the body, the parasympathetic, how our bodies are able to heal themselves. I had a whole healing with the water, which is like a big part of my journey. But then I got to the point where I was like, but me, who am I? Like, what, how dare I?
Yes.
How dare I?
Yep.
And then boom, it came from friends, family, acquaintances. You're just one of them now. Oh, you just think you're this entrepreneur. Once you start making money, you're just one. I mean, I got hit hard. The success guilt that I felt.
Yep.
And like weird stuff. I would have my own projections. I would walk into a mastermind room. Everybody's like in their, bougie designer clothes, white, whatever, European. And I'd be like, why am I even here? And I would start thinking, I don't belong here. Nobody looks like me. I don't belong here. And I'm a woman. And I work with a lot of men as well. And I would just find myself projecting. And I got to the point where I'm like, I tell this to my clients all the time. Look, you're going to see a gap. There are gaps, but you're here to fill it.
Yep.
And that's what switched on for me.
Yep.
And I was like,
Yep.
I'm Jilly. And I just like unleashed myself. I was like, my hair is curly. I'm not holding back. I'm being the weird one, whatever they want to say, it's like, and that was my regeneration moment. I literally call it my regeneration moment, where I was like, I feel like Creator was like, stop being everything else and be yourself.
Yes.
I know that was a lot of different levels to that, but that's truly how it was. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. And you touch on so many different pieces that are so, interconnected. I think this piece around bridging the gap is so important for both sides and for the bridges, because what happens, and I know that both of us, we hold this embodiment within our identities, and we hold it because of our different journeys and the way that they've shaped the way that we see ourselves, and the way that also it has shaped leadership in general, and like the communities that we're a part of and the way that we interact within communities. Is like there's different aspects of reality that certain communities are never exposed to, right? And because of that, there's this lack of awareness, this lack of understanding that creates an unconscious division. And we're here, I know that, and I know our listeners and the people that are, drawn to this kind of work are here too, to be working for collective liberation, which means that it's going to require to lean into the massive discomfort of a paradigm and a worldview that is different from what you've ever known. And so there's, the different levels and layers of privilege and access. And I'm really happy that you brought in that aspect of like colorism, right? Because it's so true. We have this privilege of lightness. And so even for our listeners, you get to tune in on like, how does your lightness or darkness affect your privilege in a way that's more often than not unconscious, because you're not even aware of it until someone brings it up. And then how open are you to receive the reflection of the truth that is different from your own maybe perception, because you've never been in the kind of environments that expose those kinds of truths. And I know that we're the kind of people that are like, we like to keep it raw and real in the way that's like, it's loving compassion to be speaking and naming the kinds of things that people have historically not named for fear of prosecution or death, or there's like a raw realness to this depth of conversation when it comes to access and power and privilege, and the way that money has played into that for our own. You brought up the system, parasympathetic system, and my work is so rooted in nervous system expansion work, and so like how it feels actually like we are dying in our bodies until you expand your somatic capacity, like how it actually feels like you're dying when you're naming these kinds of truths. And so it's like, wow, to liberate your voice and to let yourself be seen and to be visible in these kinds of things is so revolutionary in and of itself. So I'm really grateful that you brought that into the space, because it gives, I think, a really beautiful context to what it means to be a bridge. And for our community members and the leaders that are listening to this, of like, where do you get to be the bridge? No matter who you are or where you stand, there's power in the privilege and how you use it and how you allow for it to be an opening and expansion for every room that you're in. And I know for me, and I'm curious if this resonates for you, a lot of my experience being either the only woman of color in the room or one of a few, there is, this heaviness that can show up in the responsibility to be the representative of like, oh, well, you've lived both sides, so and you even sharing your experience of like your own journey. Like I resonated with so much of that, where it's like, yeah, the like our friends of color or like of all different ethnicities that aren't white, there's a certain like belonging and understanding, but also this lack of understanding and this othering that happens. And then the same on the other side, where it's like when we're in these really privileged spaces, because I know you and I, we operate in spaces where it's like, you know, multimillionaire kind of conversations, really high level, but we're the only women of color in those conversations. And then there's this like weight of both wanting to bring more diversity and equity and inclusion and like just this, yeah, regenerative wealth into that space that might not be as aware or conscious of its whiteness and the way that its whiteness is impacting the decisions and the choices that are being made. And also, yeah, that role of responsibility that gets to be, you know, this continual initiation into, okay, where do I get to use my voice in a way that is creating space for, yes, for more people to have access, for more people to have resources, and also allow for those that hold more privilege to step up in their advocacy and in their agency and in their allyship. So that's just all what's coming through for me, but I would love to hear from you, you know, as we're talking about bridging the gap and your own unique story of just arriving into the depth and richness of leadership and entrepreneurship that you're in now, like how your relationship with money has really transformed. And maybe if there's like these peak moments that you remember where you felt that internal shift that then impacted the external reality, where, you know, we talked about a little bit that sense of belongingness, but also this sense of what I hear and see show up a lot in this space, like the money space or the wealth space, of like worthiness, like feeling the actual worthiness of receiving and holding and stewarding wilder money. And yeah, what comes through for you if there's like pivotal moments that you remember in your journey where you're like, oh yeah, that gets to be me too, and owning that and reclaiming that.
Woo! We're going there. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. I mean, you and I, when, okay. Pretty sure out of 100 and something women in the room, there was about 4 women of color in that room when I met you.
Yeah.
And I've opened up to you before. We've had our like little moments of like, oh look, there's another like mixed woman here, or there's another woman of color here. Hey, you know, and I remember when you were like, yeah, it's really beautiful to see you here. And again, part of my journey was that sometimes I don't even see myself as that, right? And so this
Yeah.
embracing of myself is I'm about 5 years into wearing my hair curly. And for me, like, I mean, just imagine my hair straight. I'm a white passing
Yeah.
person, right? And so I when I receive that, and it happens to me in a lot of places now. You know, my girls will be like, "It's nice to see another person of color over here," and I'm like, "That feels good for me, okay? I'm a little insecure about it, okay? You know, I'm like shit." Um, but seriously, like I'm coming into that, and I think I forget how perceived I am, and you know, and being in that room. And so when we connect and we talk over it, it's like, how do you handle the ignorance? I mean, truly, you know, and I know that the world that we're stepping into and being that representation, being honest, it does get irritating. It does get frustrating. It does anger me in a way that when people aren't even willing to hear, and I get it because you and I have connected on this too, of the shadow side of the social justice movement, right? The absolute separation that is going on, and it ain't easy being a bridge, because you being a bridge, you get it from that side and you get it from that side. And so it's like you have to be able to hold that polarity within yourself, which is what we're made of, right? Like that's the medicine of being mixed, is you have to sit with that war maybe that your ancestors ever went through. And so that journey of recognizing, all right, I think I'm stepping into this whole new realm. That was one of my moments, right? My moment of regeneration was, okay, I'm gonna let myself be myself. The second moment was, I'm pretty sure I'm stepping into something that I don't see a lot of women doing. I walk into a room and there's only me that looks the way I do. I mean, there's these moments of unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been on my knees crying because I want to be able to represent my lineage, the indigenous mixed lineage, in a good, honorable way, but also being able to say, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. And it's okay to be in that unknown. If anybody's listening to this and you're stepping into that space, it's okay to be like, Creator, lead me here, because I need to be led. I need to be in my feminine. I need to be able to receive what this is. And I have witnessed in my career, and especially writing my book, I go deep. I go deep into where the word Black came from, where the word white came from. I go deep into, and I know we've had our moment with this because you're still learning this as well, is like the birth certificates, the commercial system, how race was construed, and our nationalities were taken from us. And so through the colonization process, the simple way to look at it is that our ancestors being of land, right? So Jillian of San Luis Obispo, where I was born, we were of the land. We had a connection with the land. And through the weaponization of the Bible, through that scripture, there were specific changes that were made in the time of Constantine. I mean, you can go back to all of the history, but it all goes back to these papal bulls that the Pope essentially said that any non-Christians, we can take their land through this doctrine of discovery. And that was my path. I was like, I need to know what happened here. I need to know. God, show me this. And so I went into the sovereignty community. So shout out anybody. There we go. Somebody said they're tapping into commerce. Yep, since 2020, my girl. I mean, once you wake up to like the actual facts of what happened, I was like, oh my gosh. And this was one of my point of money. It was before I had just hit multiple six figures. So I think I was around 350 a year, maybe 400 a year at this point. And I remember learning about the system, and my family has a big book of birth certificates. It's a family book. And so during the time of the mission system in California, they came over and basically domesticated and assimilated my ancestors into the mission system, and they changed their native names to Christian names. And I have the big book of all of those birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates. So it was like totally my inheritance to get to this place. And I was like, wait, how does money work? Why is it that so many of us tend to have a hard time clearing those money wounds? Like, what happened? So then I went into what I call the trauma with the commercial system. When the banking system, banks, came in to your ancestors' land, you've got to research that for yourself. Wait, when did banks come in? When did colonization happen? When did religion get weaponized into my ancestors' land? And I don't care if you're European. We all have a trauma with the commercial system, and when that commercial system came in, aka commerce. Because before that, we were in reciprocity. We were in what's called common law. We were in the exchange with each other based off of, hey, this is value, let's do it, great. That exchange is really sacred. And when the commercial system came in, the exchange became about, let me take from you. How can I take and exploit this? And that connected a lot for me. Monetarily, I was like, no wonder I struggle with money. Because when money came in to my lands of many of my ancestry, because I'm mixed, I started learning, oh, so there's an association with being exploited.
Yep.
And then I went through my phase of commoditizing myself. I totally did. And I was selling my, not in a way of like, sexual selling, but I definitely exploited myself in my early career. I would obsess over marketing as my value. My results were my value, my worth. And so when I learned about the commercial system and I learned about the history of colonization through the sovereignty lens, boom, it was like, okay, my worth does not have to do with my results.
Yeah.
My something just stopped right when I said that. That was funny. But like my value is inherent, and God, creator, like I know that I do not measure myself based on all of these outside things. And I saw it. I was like, why am I measuring myself off of this identity? I am not this social status. I am not the money I'm making. I am not all these things. And it was like I disconnected. I unplugged from the matrix, and I was like, what is true reciprocity? What is true regeneration? It's when we come together and we collaborate. We live in the village. We support each other. We help each other, right? And I really learned about the difference between equality and equity. And in commerce, you got to just read my book, you guys. It's almost out. It's almost out. But in commerce, there's actually like certain laws that were biblical, and I've connected a lot with the original scriptures that our ancestors, a lot of indigenous tribes and communities all over the world, were living in that way, in relation with the land, in relation with each other, in reciprocity, in regeneration. And it was like, I feel like Creator just kind of like wove me in and said, you need to unplug here. And once I did that, I was able to see, whoa, everybody, it's like the Matrix, right? Everybody thinks they're Mr. Anderson. Everybody's like so plugged into this like success, gotta get mine, money, la la. And yeah, I'm like, it's so heavy, so it's so dehydrating is what I call it.
And oh god, I love that, because we talk about, right now I'm promoting juiced up, and so when you say hydrating, it's like literally the opposite of juiced. You're dry.
So dry. I mean, the commercial system steals your electrons, and it gets you to think that you are a consumer, and so you need to consume to gain. But when you're outside of that, when you are Neo, you know that none of those things define you, and that you are limitless, and that you are free of that identity that you think that you are. And like it's a very real thing for us women, because I mean, girl, if I were to break down the commercial system, like the female body, the womb has been commercialized. It has to do with hospital births. It has to do with why I'm so passionate. I'm not even a mother yet, and I'm like, we're free birth, baby, bring it home, free your babies, like have your babies at home, because it has a lot to do with the woman being commoditized. And when you actually know about the commercialization of marriage, the state owns your marriage. The state pretty much came in between our connection with God, and I break it all down in my book. But I think for me, it was like, whoa, I'm measuring my worth so much because of commerce, right? We're told, create your prices based off your worth, your value in your prices. But we have to see that we only measure our worth when we're in commerce. Outside of commerce, you cannot measure your worth. Like, it's immeasurable. And our ancestors knew that. And that's what I'm excited to bring forth. And like, I know that is deep for some people, and some people might be listening to this like, what is this girl on right now? But it's okay, because the timing of all of this with my book, and how I felt so deeply about where do I position myself, right? Like, do I just focus on my communities, and do I step into the serving white women? And I would love to hear your take on that, because I know that you've really brought in the equity piece into your work. But for a while there, I was like, I only want to work with this person, and I didn't want to surround myself with anything else. And then I felt, you have to kind of work through those things.
Yeah. I'm so happy you brought this up, and that you're also weaving in your book, because I'm really excited to drop into your book and to share about your book launch, because this has been such a massive, powerful birthing. And I've had the honor and privilege to get to see you in that. And this piece around, positioning, I think is so big. And to speak to my journey, it's so interesting because it came through for me at a really relatively young age, the way that I'm meant to serve, my mission being very much the way that I'm perceived, which is such an interesting thing. I love that you brought that up early on in this conversation. Like, the way that I'm perceived has made it clear for me throughout my own, spiritual soul awakening journey, how I am heard by certain people in ways that other people can't hear them, or can't hear. So let's say if I were to have a conversation with someone who was maybe ignorant about some subjects that they just were never exposed to or were never aware of, whether it's classism or racism or genderism or sexism or whatever, that I noticed at a young age that people were more receptive to me in sharing the way that I share wisdom or teachings than other people. And so because of that, there was this realization that's like, oh, I could actually create really significant change in the world because of that. And so even though I've had this very strong passion for serving underprivileged communities, under-resourced communities, people of color, my whole life, and social justice has been a driving force for me. And it's where I started my whole career, was really rooted in activism and social change. That's why I was doing my nonprofit work and work within private institutions and private consulting around equity and around changing actual policy within different systems, where it was primarily white people, a lot of which were older white people who just didn't know. While I was simultaneously at the same time working with nonprofits that were predominantly people of color, predominantly Black people. So I was existing as, as young as my late teenage years, all the way through my early mid-20s, and even into my late 20s, within these different spaces at the same time. So it was like at the same time I was, bringing this, and this is what I think is a huge aspect of regenerative wealth and bridging that gap. It's like bringing the wisdom, bringing the access, bringing the resources of teaching and practices and workshops and education and expansion work to places that would otherwise not have access to them. And then spaces of extreme privilege of the 1% or the 0.01%, bringing the awareness and changing the actual way that the system was operating internally. And so what I've realized, in my own entrepreneurship journey, especially in this past, I'd say 2 or 3 years, that it's like the embodiment of what we stand for attracts the people that we're meant to serve. And so because of that, my spaces, they are so diverse, but the mission is quite, they're synergistic, right? Mm-hmm. Whether, you're my highest paying one-on-one client, or whether you're in my free resource center, in my free membership, there's this unifying mission of I'm here to liberate myself and in service to the highest good of liberation for all. And that means I'm willing to lean into the edgy discomfort of meeting the icky, sticky shadows that most people aren't willing to face. And for me, that is what creates the kind of wealth that actually feels life-giving, that actually feels juicy, that feels rich, that makes life feel meaningful and fulfilling and satisfying as we're creating social impact, as we're changing the world. versus what I see with some people who are multimillionaires or who've gotten to the place where they're 8 figures or whatever amount of money, but it's still like there's this void, there's this emptiness, or the body has been depleted or drained or exhausted because it wasn't rooted in that fertile soil, as we're talking about, which is, so much of what my work is like. It doesn't even matter as much where you're at with your money or with your income or with your cash. It matters how it feels in your body. And that's what's revolutionary rich. And what I love about you, and I'm so excited to talk about your book, is like water is this life-giving resource. And I think about, and I teach this in my programs, or I'm leading a program right now called Regenerative Wealth, and I'm fucking obsessed. So it's inside of my wealth mind, inside of Wealth Overflow. And so I've been getting really deep into like the way that Mother Earth teaches us how to steward money in a regenerative way. And so I think of it through the water systems. And like when there is a wild overflow of resource that's actually not being hoarded out of fear or clinging out of sense of false control, and it actually has the freedom with this depth of self-trust and like a liberated nervous system to flow and to go out into the places that's circulating into the larger ecosystem, then it actually comes back in even wilder overflow. And this is why being a consciously embodied leader who's anchored in a regenerative system, a regenerative business system, regenerative wealth, with money flowing in like that pleasurable, joyful way, it's like, oh yeah, when money comes in, I hold it and I grow it and I expand it and I circulate it and I steward it out into like streams and rivers, and all of the places that it goes, it nourishes and enriches those places. And so when someone else grows, I grow too. And that's also a huge aspect of, collaborative partnership and like sisterhood and what it means to be in tribe and community. It's like, I don't need to hoard anything out of fear, because I know I rise, we rise together. So like when I allow money to flow out into these ways, when I'm investing it, when I'm stewarding it, when I'm circulating it, it comes back always tenfold, hundredfold, thousandfold, and we all grow together. And in a regenerative ecosystem, the diversity of thoughts, of backgrounds, of beliefs, of identities is what allows for that soil to become more rich, versus a monoculture farm, where it's like everything is the same, everything is uniform. It's like the soil gets dry and brittle and hard. And I use this analogy a lot inside of Here We Grow, where it's like a sunflower, like maybe it'll get to 1 foot when it takes that much exposure to sunlight or to water or to air or whatever. But if the qualities of the conditions of that garden aren't optimal for the highest level of rising and thriving, then it's going to be capped at that upper limit. And then from like a somatic nervous system lens, like when you have all of these resources coming in, you have these incredible women that are pouring into you, when you have like an abundance of, resourcing from, and wisdom and teachings from all of the different people that you surround yourself with, like that 1 foot sunflower can get to fucking 10 feet, 20 feet. Like the mind can't even fathom, because it's like there's no limit. It's like we thrive through the multiverse. It's just beyond what we can even perceive as possible. And I think that, you and I, some of the way that our work is really like synergistic and aligned in that regenerative wealth and overflow is like when you allow for, money or water to be flowing in these ways that are in alignment with your soul's purpose and with your spirit's like brightness and bigness, then it's something that it's bigger than you. It's so much bigger than you. And that also takes out the individualism of toxic capitalism, where it's like, this is only for my benefit. It's like, no, actually, this is for those people that are directly impacted by our choices that most people don't even think about. Like, gosh, I'm on a fucking roll right now. I'm just like,
go.
Like when I first got really passionate about environmental justice and environmental activism, I was like probably 18 years old, I think. And I was like, whoa, I had never thought about what away was when we throw things away. I was just like, oh yeah, when we throw things away, it goes away. And then I was exposed. I was a part of this social justice theater troupe at my college. And there's like this annual conference, and it's on a different social issue every year. And that year it was on environmental justice. So it was the first time I learned that the away is underprivileged, under-resourced communities that are primarily Black and brown, where all of that trash gets dumped on them. It intoxicates their air and intoxicates their water. So our privilege, and I'm including myself in this, like I'm not separating myself from this. Right. the away of my waste from over excess goes into a place that is literally killing other people. I'm getting so edgy and real right now. Woo! And so we think about the way that, you know, on a micro level and then on a macro level, our choices are either creating direct harm to other people or are creating liberation and freedom and joy. And so when we think about wealth in that way, and we think about money in that way, and even water in that way, it changes how we show up in the world. There's like a different level of conscious choice that is empowering, because then it's not mindless wastefulness in your energy. It's like empowering movement of energy. I'm choosing to move my energy in this way. And because of that, it is directly resulting in either liberation or harm and toxicity. So that was a whole lot.
It's so real. It's so real, but people don't look at their impact. They don't look at the ripple effect. They don't look at the waste of what they're actually doing. And it's interesting because in my work, and I know we've connected some of these drops before, but in my work, so water and money, right? Water and money. Why do we say multiple streams of income? Right? Why is it called a bank, a river bank, currency, cash flow, liquid assets? It's all water words. So water and money go hand in hand, right? And so like as I was on my journey of reconnecting to the land, getting my hands in the soil, like reconnecting to my ancestral gardening ways, it all clicked for me when I learned that, first of all, native plants, when they are planted next to each other, companion planting, it's a way to feed each other. So when the plants are monocropped and they're all the same, it depletes the soil of the minerals. But when we have the diversity, right, the resilient theory, just shouting out our indigenous elders for teaching this and keeping this alive for so long, I was like, oh my gosh, wait, diversity is what will grow the garden. And this is the thing with scripture, right? I trigger a lot of people when I start talking about scripture and like our ancestral teachings, but I'm telling you, this is in there. And it was before it was weaponized, before. And it says that we are stewards of this land. We aren't just here to live off of the land. We are stewards of the land. But what happens with, let's say, a garden that has all these different diverse plants? I'm shouting out Red Earth Movement. I've learned so much from my teacher, Adam, if he's going to listen to this later. But what happens is it actually brings more rain. It literally moves the water cycle. And so if we look at money as the water cycle and we see what's happening with money, it's dammed. It's dammed up by the river banks, the dams. And if you know anything about dams, dams control the flow of water. And then what happens is is essentially what's happening with California is all the dams that have been built is drying up the land. So California isn't dehydrated in its natural state. It is the most fertile land. Oh my gosh, it's just so amazing. And like when you learn about the dams and how the dams are affecting the water cycles, I started asking myself, okay, where am I dammed up? Okay, obviously that inner work of like, where am I dammed up? But then where is the dam with money? And so there's a helicopter flying over right now. So and when you look at money, right? If the water cycle is the money cycle, we plant, the rain comes, seeps into the ground, rises up, evaporates. But why isn't the rain coming anymore? What happened? Corporations dammed it up and hoarded all of that money. But if money is water, it needs to flow back down again. And something that you said earlier when you were talking about the waters flowing again in the wild overflow, right? Well, when water is able to flow, water has something called the lowest velocity. So without any, let's say, pathways, water will go where it's needed the most. Water will go where it's needed the most, where it is most dehydrated. What communities need money the most? Where does it need to go the most? And I'm sure you've kind of navigated your way through like charity and the difference between charity and philanthropy. And I've worked in different nonprofits that you're just kind of contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
There's
That's
a difference
full
there, right?
conversation.
Yeah. but it's what I learned through water is that I'm here to circulate the water cycle, right? The circle is very ancestral as well. But in order to do that, I have to know where to cycle my abundance, stream my money, and be smart with the investments, because one big shadow I work through in my nervous system was a big one, was overgiving. I was a big overgiver. Like I mean, Democrat through and through until I like kind of woke up out of that system, and then kind of got conservative, woke up out of that system. But a lot of my foundation was I just wanted to fix people, and I overgave. And this happens a lot, right? We overgive as a way to validate, but in my leadership, what I started realizing is that I gotta be aware of how I'm giving. And in my overflow, because there was a point where I did come into money, made my first 6 figures, and I was just, giving it all away, and you know how that goes. And I had to pull back and say, if I'm in this overflow, I have to be discerning with where I'm flowing it, right? Because then it's just gonna flood. And floods cause damage. And I always say that when floods come and rain comes, it shows you where your runoffs are. So when it poured a lot last year during winter here, a lot of foundations were cracking, mudslides, because it's showing us that rain is trying to come, right? In the nervous system, the money is trying to come, but your foundations can't hold it. And it will leak. You're leaking.
Oh my God, I'm so happy that you brought this, because this is such a powerful wisdom drop here around how imperative it is to root your system with a regenerative foundation in order to be able to actually hold wild overflow. Because the difference of what I see of people who are working for even sustainable businesses is that this goes beyond sustainable. To sustain means to sustain what's already happening, which is why I'm not going to get really deep right now into climate crisis, but sustaining something that isn't working is never going to create a thriving, right? Like we need to revolutionize, we need to regenerate, and that needs to come from a rooted nervous system in the body that's going to be connected to this larger system of, a regenerative social system, a regenerative like macro system that I believe is what is actually going to be in service to like everyone getting to feel like deeply nourished and resourced and replenished in our work, in our service. And so I love that you also bring in this overgiving, because that energy leak piece is really big. And I also wanted to bring this in because you hit something that really was potent around like this relationship to money that I would deem inside of Here We Grow. I call it like the way that toxic capitalism can reveal itself in like a shadowy way of like working for money versus living in stewardship. Like in Here We Grow, we call it a sexy steward of money, and you were bringing in like a steward of the land. And so that's the way, when we're separate from our own inherent value, our own inherent worth, and our depth of spiritual connection and intimacy with our body, it's like, oh, it's not working for something, it's working in service to allow for stewardship to be the most easeful, in my world, pleasurable flow it can possibly be. And so I'm really happy that you brought that up, because I think it's a really important point of like cleaning up the ways that energy leaks are creating a rocky foundation is one way that you as a listener and as someone who's receiving this, transmission that we're dropping here can really rewire and repattern your own nervous system, your own somatic capacity to actually be able to hold regenerative wealth beyond just sustaining a system that isn't in alignment it with the way that you actually are meant to be able to be serving in your leadership.
And
so
this
yeah.
is so, it's so good. It's so good. It's so aligned. I mean, there's so many levels to this for me. Why I call myself a water heiress.
Yeah, tell us why.
I didn't know it. I had a whole situation with my brand, and I had to change my brand, and like this name just like came through. And I had been working in the garden for a couple of years, and like getting my hands in the soil for me has always been like the work, right? If I don't have my hands actually in the soil, for me it's like, okay girl, come on, like get to the soil. And I don't call it manifestation anymore, because everything to me is an inheritance, whether it be my ideas, whether it be my abundance, my material wealth, my whatever it is, I'm inheriting it. Right? Our elders say that creator gives us, and we are only temporarily able to experience it in our lifetime. And we have to remember that everything that we do is for the next generations. And so what'll happen, that I see a lot, is like being in business for 10 years, right? I've seen people grow, and they're in their like inflation, right? They grow so fast, and they're in their abundance, but they're not giving back, or they don't have like a philanthropic lens, or it's almost like there's this addiction to more. What could I do to go bigger, better, more luxury, whatever it is? And it's like, wait, the bigger, the expansion that you're looking for is in the regenerating, is in the giving the back, right? And then the initiations come through not over giving, but being able to discern where to bring that abundance in. And that stewardship that I came into with the land, it was like I would get my hands in the soil, and I'd be like, this soil is, I'm going to plant this seed, and this seed is temporarily going to be in this soil. And then the seed is going to grow. And then as the seed grows, I get the fruit, and then I eat the fruit, and then the whole cycle starts again. But we don't have that connection in business yet. In business, there's such a corporate mindset around get it, hoard it, mine, that it ends up damming up the actual flow that it's supposed to go back into. And for me, I can feel it in my nervous system. For me, when I am rising, if you will, and I'm getting all my ideas, and I'm writing my book, and I'm stepping into myself, it's almost like, I told you this actually when we were naked in the hot tub.
When we were naked in the hot tub, wealth
with like, 10 other women, and we were just being free. I have a joke that I'm like, people who get to be naked with me in a hot tub, that's a privilege, because I'm like very private, but what I realized is that some people, based off of their ancestry, based off of their biology, based off of the memories in their waters in their body, they may not have the same memory that we do in our body. So, and I had to come to terms with that, of like, but what about the reservations? What about the lower income? What about blah, 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 blah? And it's like, there's this actual biological feeling that I feel. And I'm like, if I'm not giving back in certain ways as I'm rising, like it dams me up. Like I can't even, I just feel it. And I feel like a lot of people listening to this, if you're in that place of rising in your leadership, and you're like, okay, what are these girls actually talking about, and how can I implement what they're saying? Like, you really have to ask yourself in your own body, like, what does that regeneration actually look like for you? How does it show up in your reality? And start to, it's almost like your nervous system goes like this, and then when it comes to the community and the giving back in the village, it almost like, it just, a byproduct of it overflows. And just to bring in the water lens here, when your nervous system is expanding its capacity, your cerebral spinal fluid, your synovial fluid, your fascia, everything starts to flow in your body. And when you're dammed up, whether it be self-sabotage or whatever you're going through, right, as you're expanding, when you're dammed up, that actually has a physiological effect on your physical body.
I love that you brought in the nerd science, because this is my shit, and this is like literally what I do in my coaching is like clearing and alchemizing and transmuting the stored energy that's like trapped in the system somatically from this very thing that you're speaking into. So I love that you brought in like the nerdy science of somatics and the way that the nervous system expansion like liberates the actual flow of energy in your body, which makes you more open to actually receiving. And it's with money, but beyond money, because we know wealth is so much beyond money. But of course, it's an imperative part of it in the reality that we're living in. And so I love that you brought that in.
I could talk about the body all day. I struggle. Like, if I'm out of my faith, like I always say, faith lives in my fascia. When I'm out of that faith, my body, like I'll be like, ow, or like my shoulder or my back, and I'm like, oh, fine. You know, it's like my water body. In my book, I talk about how my water body started to speak to me, and I dealt with a lot of sickness as a kid, pneumonia as a kid, and like as I got older, I found the water path, started drinking different water and like reconnecting to like actual living water. But one of the things that I started feeling was that in entrepreneurship, nobody brings their body with them.
Yep.
It's like, how much mindset work are you going to do? How much self-development are you going to do? I mean, we could sit here and talk about our finances all day, and I could give you all the left brain stuff, but like your water body's here too.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't matter how much mindset you can approach it with a mindset, but don't forget your body is here with you, and your body's listening, and the waters in your body actually record what you're saying, and your nervous system can sense other people's nervous systems. And so it's like, I call it hydrated entrepreneurship, where we bring our water bodies with us. And it's because for me, and I know not everybody's like this, but for me, my body will scream at me.
Yeah.
So the work, even the work that you're doing and weaving it in, it's like, I have seen time and time again, and in my industry, network marketing, people make money fast. They inflate, and then, you know, I've seen it crumble real fast too. And I've seen how people's nervous systems, as they're expanding, it's like they don't understand how it works, and so it's not sustainable. And then it collides on itself. It like implodes on itself. And I'm like, this overflow that you have, and like the juiciness, and like I have a joke that I always say, like, stay wet, right? Like, stay wet, because those creative juices are flowing, and it's just in life, right? But one of the things that I love about like this connection that we're connecting today is I really truly feel that this connection with the body and the land, through what I know about the commercial system, has been severed, and we're reclaiming that. The birds are like, yeah. And we're reclaiming that through this weird way that, you know, some people are like, these women, they're just out there, right? They're doing this and that and the other, but it's inherent. It's within us. And the more that we speak it, and the more that we come together and be that representation together, like, it's ancestral. It's so alive, and I pray that everybody listening to this is going to continue on that path, and that we can be that validation for you. We can be that reflection that we're supposed to bring our water bodies with us. We're supposed to be in a regenerative state, and it's an honor. I feel like I just see like all of our ancestors that just came before us, you know, and like now we're standing here, and they're just like, yes, queens, go, run, you're safe now, go. And like, oh, I'm getting teary-eyed, but like, that's what I've had to work through, you know. And like, how many women in my lineage are watching me, and how many prayers made me into being, and there is absolutely nothing that can stop us now. There's nothing that can stop us. It is our time, and we need to rise and really be that representation. If we're going to talk about the feminine, if you're going to talk about collaboration, if you're going to talk about all these things, then listen to each other. Let's bring that into the space and diversify the garden.
Yes. Whew. My God, tears are welling. So place to land here. And one of the things that I say, it came through at one of the initiations that I led myself through at the beginning of this year, was going through like really, really challenging initiations, was Watch Me Rise. And it's become a through line inside of Here We Grow. And I was just feeling that energy so much in what you were sharing here of this, this prayer that we share with each other and the honor to be able to watch each other rise beyond all limits, against all odds, and really come together as a way of holding hands in our rise, and how that gets to be the answered prayer for our younger selves and for the generations that were before us and the generations that are to come. And I know that the work that we're doing is just so powerful. And so I thank you and I honor you, and I feel so blessed to share space and sisterhood with you. And I also want to give you some time to get to speak into, as we close up here, your book, because it's so incredible, the work and the devotion that you've been pouring into it. And I want every human who is listening to get to have their hands on this book when it comes out. And so is there anything that you would love to share about the book, to invite people to get to be a part of the launch, or like any like really big piece of wisdom that you're like, oh, this is the thing that I know is just changed my whole life, or anything, to share with the listeners?
Get on my book launch list.
Hey.
Comment book. Like, I'm just gonna get straight to it, y'all. It has taken me about 5 years to write this book, and all I can say is that the waters in your body as you read this book are going to transform from the inside out. And right now, we're almost there. We're almost there. So if you comment book below, you'll be added to my book launch channel. And I'm just pouring into everybody in my book launch channel. You can support me, share my book the day of. But it's been a whole initiation and birthing process. And all I really want to say about it is, like, I'm choosing to let people have their own experience with it. I feel like it's like it's like a long time coming for the people who know me. For the people who don't know my work, you might be surprised at what you find. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Ooh, that's so good. The things that I love also about us is we were vibing off of this, how one of your mantras is just flow, or like here we flow, and here we flow, and then here we grow is one of mine. And then when you said just what was it, get wet, or like, was it just get wet, or get wet?
Get wet.
Just get wet. It's so perfect, because Juice of June, the mantra for Juice of June is get wetter, wilder, and wealthier. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so fucking perfect.
I mean, so, it's the juiciness. It's when you get it, you get it. When you get it, you get it. You just gotta come in to get it.
Because you're like, oh, so good. So good. What's the last thing I ask our honored guests inside of the Revolutionary Rich series is, what is feeling revolutionary rich for you in your life right now?
Fertility. Fertility in multiple streams of income, and expanding my businesses through my book. And it feels like there's a diversity happening within my offerings and my partnerships. And I'm stepping into a whole new world of, like, let's go, like that next level that I'm like, look, the things that I say, they might be triggering, but I encourage you to research it yourself. And I've got that like scientific mind part of me that is able to explain things, but part of me is like, less explaining, more going. Action. And that's how it's been with my book. Is like, I'm just running with all the initiations with it, and it's truly a blessing. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my honor. This is not the end. I know it's just the beginning. Every single person that's come in here has been so good. And this particular conversation, I know, is like, oh, it's so deep, so nuanced. We went like to such incredible places. And so I'm really grateful that we dropped in here, and I love you so much. Yes. And so yes, drop. Is it book? Is just the word book? Okay, so just
Yeah,
drop
it's just the word book.
book to get on Jilly's waitlist for her book launch, which is going to be fucking extraordinary. I can't wait for it to be birthed out into the world. And then we have Juiced Up June is happening right now inside of Here We Grow. The early access is open this week. So all of May, when you join us in Juiced Up June, you get early access by becoming a partner, which is really fucking incredible because I've been loving, thriving partnerships right now. And then we officially are running all of June. So it's a 30-day wealth expansion portal to allow for your nervous system to expand your capacity to be receiving money in wilder overflow. So as the mantra for the Juiced Up June goes, it's have your wettest, wildest, wealthiest month yet. And I'm like, I am going all out, and it's only $33 right now. And I also, one of my coaches that I love, because again, in the season of partnership and juicy collaboration, I'm gifting everyone that joins Juiced Up June my coach's program that she's running right now called I Made It May. So you get 2 for 1 for now until the price rises, and it's going to rise without notice. So if you're listening to this and you want to rise with us for only $33 for Juiced Up June, you can drop juiced in the comments and you will get the link for that as well. So thank you for listening, and I love you so much, and I'm blessing up the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.